During her speech, Kamala Harris was interrupted by hecklers. We showed it last night. We showed the clip last night. And I won't call them hecklers. I call them protesters. They may have been heckling, but they were there as protesters. And she stopped and said something very important and interesting. She said, and I'm not quoting this verbatim, but basically, if you want Donald Trump to be president, or if you want to vote for Donald Trump, just say that, but I'm speaking now. Mm-hmm. And she shut it down. The crowd erupts. Twitter, certainly Black Twitter, and definitely Black woman Twitter, was loving it. And I understood all the reasons why. Now, I want to just give a little more context because I think the media hasn't told the whole story. That wasn't the first interruption.
Right.
That was maybe the third from what I've seen. It could be more, but I've seen 2 other interruptions, number one. And number 2, she did meet with that group earlier that day prior to the speech to talk about, by the group's own admission, to talk about a potential weapons embargo, to talk about ceasefire, and to talk a little bit more broadly about the conditions in Gaza. So I don't want to make it seem like protesters showed up, she shut them down, wouldn't listen to them. That's not how it went. All that said, and this is probably where you and I aren't going to agree. When I saw that, I said, I understand why you did that. I get how that's going to resonate with the base. No one wants, shutting down people who are trying to shut you down. Black women in particular are often silenced and disrespected in ways that others are not. For God's sake, I ain't seen them at one Trump rally. And there's some political reasons for that too, but it's just noteworthy. But my point is, this is not strategically wise because you're alienating the very people you need in order to have a shot at winning the presidency. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, first, it wasn't just the base that supported her doing it. And thank you for adding the context, because sometimes what happens with media is that they go with the clip. And and that clip was fire. I don't blame them. That's right. That's a sizzle reel. You should go with it, but it should have the context of she'd already tried 2 other tacks and they were still going. And we're not even knowing at the time that she's doing it, that she's also already met with them and listened, like given time that many don't get right now in order to directly hear concerns and provide feedback. So with all of that as context, it makes it, to me, makes so much more sense that she did what had to be done to say, but not right now. And for all the people who want to question her Blackness, I hope you have a better understanding. I hope that offer of proof from Counselor Harris was enough for you to understand that there's a certain way we do things that nobody can really do better than us. And she has that down.
There is no doubt about that. When I saw that clip, that was actually, in some ways, my visceral reaction was like, I've seen that look before. I've heard that before. I got a Black mom. I got a Black wife, got Black friends. I've seen that lots of ways.
Yes. I've been on the receiving end of that, and I have delivered it flawlessly for many a year now. So
yes, you have. Now I can fully corroborate that claim. So, but the question becomes again, if it is that, and I'm not saying you have to de-black yourself to run for president. You can't do that. But there's a way that I worry that some people will read that in the same racialized lens we're reading that through, and it'll make her less accessible. It's almost like there's a way that when Obama ran, to be successful, he had to kind of play the middle, not just in terms of his politics, but in terms of sort of how he engaged, the kind of speech patterns he offered, who he talked to, what kind of beer he would drink, what kind of activities he said he liked to do. All of these things was sort of a way to play to middle America. Black women have an even heavier burden and an even harder road to travel to get to this place. Did that response, we're going to get to the politics of it, but even just in terms of the visceral reaction, the emotional reaction, the body language, all of that, do you think strategically that's wise? Again, I'm just asking in terms of how people will perceive it.
Right. Well, I don't think we have to think about it and guess about it. I think we can look at how people perceived it. It wasn't just the base that appreciated it. It wasn't just Black women, for all of the reasons of all of the ways that we've been disrespected, who appreciated her not allowing for the hijacking of her entire speech, which people had been out in the heat for 8+ hours in order to listen to, not the protesters, but her give her speech. So she wasn't just defending herself or her time, reclaiming her time, but the time of the thousands who were there to hear it, and those of us by extension who were watching and wanting to hear from her. But we also see white men saying, that's strong, that's affirmative, that's leadership, that's presidential, that's commanding. We see the legal community saying, yep, that's how you do it, because what else are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to just sit there and let them take over and time after just, okay, wait until they're finished? Please stop. Would you please stop? Come on, guys. Come on. No,
Right.
that's not what needs to be done. And I would offer up first, you know what? Damned if you do, damned if you don't, because she's going to be the smiling, giggling, laughs too much, get the criticism for unseriousness, right? And then when she shows you, no, remember Senator Harris, who was also AG Harris, who was also District Attorney Harris, and I don't pardon fools. And you can't just come over here and plop like a big thing of shit in front of me and expect me to smell it, which was what she said last night. Now they're gonna have a problem with that. No, she's both. And people who come against her need to understand you're gonna get both. And whichever one you get really has to do with the way that you present yourself. And it wasn't a neck roll. It wasn't overly Black, overly angry, overly any of the things that they're going to say. But one of the things that people really need to understand about her is she is very comfortable with herself. She has spent many years in the public eye, and she trusts who she is, which is why she won't back off of her laugh when she feels like laughing, which is why she can smile and be really excited to meet you. And then in the same conversation, say, stop effing around. So she is all of those things at the same time. And I applaud that, because we've had to do the dance so much, Mark. I mean, if we're going to actually move into the future, I think that it has to be with some integrity about who we are and bringing the wholeness of who we are to the process.
I couldn't agree more with that part. I didn't want her to deracialize anything. I didn't think it was too black girl, to any of those things. Although I saw some of that on Twitter, I suspect that's from people who just don't like Black women and who probably aren't going to vote for a Black woman no matter what. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time and energy trying to comport myself in a way to make some of the dudes in my barbershop vote for you, because some of the dudes in my barbershop ain't voting for you no matter what. And it don't matter who they voting against. You know what I mean? My concern was the second part. And you actually tweeted about this. I'm going to bring it up for a second. You tweeted about this in response to Qasem Rashid, who said, folks claiming she handled it the right way need to understand you aren't the one she's trying to convince. Extra empathy never hurt. She just met with uncommitted movement leaders. And basically what he was saying is, like, you're out here, that Kamala Harris is meeting with people who under Biden's campaign, when Biden was running for president, they were uncommitted and leaning toward no. And you just met with them to say, hey, I'm open to this. Does publicly shutting them down do anything to bring them into the tent? Does it keep them where they are, or does it push them away? I mean, I think that's the fundamental question. You responded by saying, folks claiming she handled it the wrong way need to understand you aren't the one who is being disrespected. She was. And the thousands who came there to hear her, the protesters intended to disrupt. Well done. And they got what they got for their efforts. I hear you on part of that. I don't necessarily see protesting as disrespect in any more than when, you know, they interrupt the President Biden at Mother Emanuel AME back in the wintertime. It's like they are, now people may have feelings about what they did to the church, but in terms of the act, I'm talking about in terms of Biden. It's like, I'm protesting the president. It's not personal. There's a genocide going on. You can have a conversation whether it should happen in the church, outside the church, etc. But Biden has a right, or people have a right to protest Biden. people now have a right to protest Trump or Harris or whoever. My concern is, again, a strategic one. I want, and I need to say this because sometimes I think people don't get this. I want her to win. This is a conversation about how we can win, how we can stop Trump. And for me, I don't see a Kamala Harris victory that doesn't include Michigan and Pennsylvania, 2 states where people have pushed for an uncommitted vote. And if they feel like they're getting that there's grandstanding happening, or if they feel like they're not being heard, or they feel like they were heard and then it was pointless because the next day the Harris administration says, well, yeah, we're not really considering a weapons embargo. If they don't feel like it's sincere, then they're not on board. And if the college students, the young people, the Arabs, the Muslims, all the brown people aren't on board, I don't think she wins. So my question is, does this hurt that strategy? That my concern is that it does.
Well, what do you consider protesting in the middle of somebody's speech? It's not disrespectful. It's what? What do you call it? Patriotic?
I think patriotic is overused. I mean, I do think
Okay.
it's. I would say, I think that it.
I mean, as opposed to protesting and the way we do on the perimeter where we're shouting, we might be singing "We Shall Overcome," we might be doing whatever. But when it's inside the speech and you came in the speech as if you came to listen to the speech, and then you are protesting, it also heckling, because when you're saying genocide Kamala while she's speaking, and saying, that they're not going to vote for her while she's speaking. This is a group she's already met with. But even if it wasn't, let's just take that issue out of it and put it as if it was George Floyd Justice and Policing protesting. It was Roe v. Wade protesting. It was Moms for Peanut Butter protesting. Doesn't matter to me because the issue is technical, right? If you're doing your rightful protesting, freedom of speech, God bless America, while somebody is speaking and everybody around you is trying to hear the speech, how is that not disrespectful? And that's my first question. And then I know it's not my interview, but then second, so I can have a better understanding. Second, what is it that you're supposed to do your third time around with the group that continues to do that about whatever the issue is? Because you want all your voters. So you're not trying to alienate voters. You're trying to handle a moment. What do you do with that?
I think there's a couple things with that. I see it as confrontational. I see it as disobedient. But I don't see it as disrespectful, because it's not a lack of respect that is prompting this. It's a call to action. There are disrespectful chants that can happen. But when you're part of an administration that has actually sort of funded and armed a genocide, even if you're not the president, you're the vice president, I think you got to charge that to the game. I think you got to say, look, we're in this. And I know lots of people in the State Department, lots of people in the Biden administration who have said, like, look, you're making us look crazy out here, right? We want something different. Biden's not listening. I'm willing to separate Kamala from Biden to that extent. But I think that in that moment, you got to own that you were part of that and understand why they are upset. I think you need a little extra empathy, and I think you need a little extra generosity. If I go to and I've done this a million times, if I go to a protest and yell during a speech, I expect to be taken out. By taken out, I mean, just to be clear, in this era, I expect security to remove me.
To be removed, right?
I would not be mad if security removed her. Right? If security had her,
eventually. I mean, she tried to avoid that.
I know, and I'm saying this strategically. I think she would have been better just having security remove them, because when security removes them, that's what they're there for. They're there to be like, look, I got kicked out, right? Just like when you go to certain protests, you go there to get arrested, right? Like they want that. So I'm okay with that. I think when she says to them, if you just want Trump, say that. The problem with that is that it makes it sound as if there's no space in her tent, in the Democratic tent, or at least the Kamala Harris tent, for protest and for a principled pushback against the genocide in Gaza. I'm not saying that's how she feels. I'm saying that's how it's communicated. That's what people received, because I'm in those circles. I'm in those group chats. I'm in those text messages. And a lot of people who were looking for permission, nobody wants Trump. And on the left, I should say, nobody wants Trump. Some people are willing to accept or stomach Trump based on their ideological principles, but people are like, please give me a reason not to vote for this, right? And when Kamala comes When Josh Shapiro was not chosen, I was one of the people squawking about Josh Shapiro, as you know. When Josh Shapiro was not the choice, I said Kamala got my vote. That's all I needed. She got my vote. And I tweeted and I said, declared publicly, she is showing that she's willing to listen to the grassroots. I'm worried that all of that work that was done was undermined by just that sentence. It can be repaired, but I worry that that wasn't strategically helpful when she could have said, like Joe Biden has done, like Obama's done, like Hillary's done, like others have done, look, this is America. You could protest. They have a right to protest. Let them yell. And then I would have just sat there, gave whatever Snooki, whatever your bodyguard's name is, the wink, carry the asses out, and then kept on going. That's how I would have preferred to see it.
Yeah, well, I mean, now we have the Black woman who didn't do that, so I guess we'll all make the adjustments. We're first of our kind right now in that we're getting a woman who's going to give you chances, and then gave a signal that she's not going to tolerate it. And she didn't just give a signal for them to go out. She reminded everybody that there is a binary choice happening right now. After she had reminded them that she believes in democracy, but it's time now for her to speak and deliver her remarks. And to me, I mean, it's child's play to not know that when somebody else is speaking, you shouldn't be. It's disrespectful for you to do so. You're going to end up carried out. The fact that you get told about yourself before you get carried out, I hope you didn't come to get carried out expecting to be coddled. I mean, these and frankly, for people in any part of the left to need a reason to not vote for Trump is problematic.
Maybe.
And it's not really a problem that only the vice president and Governor Walz can handle. I will have those conversations, but my patience is running thin. Also, we just talked about the press conference. He's a fool. He's an idiot. He's a racist. He's in cognitive decline. He's an indicted and convicted criminal. Now, if there is a struggle about finding a reason to not vote for him and to vote for somebody who actually cares about any 7 out of your 8 issues, then there's where our work really should begin.
But the key point there that I think has to be remembered, and again, I agree with you. I think I would be okay with somebody voting on the one issue, depending on how affected they are by the one issue. For example, it's hard for me to tell a Palestinian, well, yeah, she's good on the other 7, but the genocide is happening to your family. Like she ain't really handling it right, but vote for it anyway. I can't in good conscience tell a Palestinian to vote for Biden or Harris or Trump or anybody else who they feel is causing or enabling the genocide of their people. But by that same extension, I could say that to people who simply have a moral opposition to it. I think my issue is the consequence of not pulling the lever for Kamala Harris as a practical matter is an outcome that will make things even worse for Palestinians. If Trump were better on Palestine, I'd say, fine, vote Jill Stein, vote Cornel West, get your Trump, right? Or vote for Trump and get your Trump, if the outcome were better. But the outcome for Palestinians won't be better under Donald Trump. In 99.9% of the ways, right? In any practical way, it won't be better. So I'm with you on that. My concern is that you're in Michigan where you are talking to the Palestinians, you are talking to the Arabs, you are talking to the Syrians and the Lebanese, you're talking to the very people who for whom that 1 out of 8 is home. And so that's why I don't think that that's the best choice. And I think in your speech, you should tell people, look, ultimately it's a binary choice. I think that's actually a very good argument for her to make. An argument
that is the argument she was making in the speech. That was the argument she was making in the speech. And that was the argument that she was making when she stopped the hecklers to her speech. Absolutely. She made that argument the whole time. And I think one of the things we have to remember for those of us who support her, which is why even X, where I halfway hate being over there in that hell site, but I am there and more visible of late, is because this country has a woman problem. It has a Black woman problem, but it has more so a woman problem. And it women with power, women with authority in this country, we don't go like that. There's a reason why we're the only civilized nation to not have a head of state who is a woman ever in our history. And that is a sickness. And so I think that we have to be careful, no matter how important the issue is, which is why I said, whether it's Palestinians, whether it's Roe v. Wade, whether it's peanut butter and jelly, we have to be careful, because not just white men in power, Mark, but this country, all of us. I'm talking about women hating women. I'm talking about Black men not supporting women. I'm talking about white women not supporting their own, have an issue with making this final decision that women are able to lead and command armed forces, make the gravest decisions of life on behalf of our nation. And so when we see women asserting themselves, we have to be careful to check for our own biases and not spend a whole lot of time on the way a woman does it, as opposed to a way a man could have done it, and whether we would have had the same issue or not. And I'm not saying that it would have been any different here. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But we've seen our prior leaders cuss folks out. We've seen them be rude to media. We've seen them do all kinds of things. And we're seeing the current GOP person just today, that was a stupid question, calling half of the country just depraved and debased. So my caution, and the reason why I'm pushing back, is because I know some of what happens, even when they see something like yesterday, or when she says I'm talking, there's some who does she think she is in it. As
that's probably true too. That's a fair point.
A Black woman.
I think that's right. I think there is some of that in there, and I think we have to hold space for both points, right? It's how do we critically reflect and self-reflect, right, about whether we, about why we're bothered by this, and then how much of it is, though, a principled worry and fear about losing this election because the stakes are so high. If Kamala Harris, from my perspective, if Kamala Harris had cussed them out, said, "Get out, I don't want to be disrespectful," I wouldn't care. Go as hard as you want. I'm not saying send the snipers, but like, I'm saying, like, for me, it wasn't it wasn't like the aggressiveness thing. It wasn't she's too aggressive, she's too loud. It wasn't any of that. It was more like, we need these votes. Now, and this is a question I want to ask you before we go. Maybe am I wrong about that? Because I'm hearing some people say something different, which is, people protesting, you ain't never voting for you anyway. So you might as well strengthen the internal base, the people you're talking about, the legal community, the Black community, the liberal community, the people who should be voting Democrat but are questionable about women, but maybe they need to see some force from a woman to show that she can lead and command and all that stuff. That maybe it's better to shut down strategically. I'm talking about ethically or morally right now, but it's better to just shut down than people like she did, and shore up her base who actually might vote for her, and just chalk the fact that the people in that crowd that shut her down and yelled over her after meeting with her and going over it with her twice, they ain't voting for you no way. So just don't even worry about them. That is another perspective. I'm not giving up on that cadre of people in the crowd. I happen to believe, because they're like me. They're people who, I didn't vote for Hillary. I didn't vote for Obama. For several reasons, multiple reasons. But at this moment in history, I'm saying, what is the best move we can make? What is the best outcome we can get? I believe it's with Kamala Harris. And honestly, if she were a white woman, I'm not sure I'd vote for her either. But because she's a Black woman, I'm saying any doubt I have, I'm going to lean into Black women, because that history has shown that we're better when we do. Right? I'm willing to do all of that, but I'm not giving up on them hecklers being part of the voting base. Am I being too hopeful? Is the strategy better to be like, F them, meaning forget them, F them, I'm going to worry about the people inside of my base, shore them up?
Well, I'm just glad you're going to be voting for this Black woman, Mark, so you can at least this time vote for a winning team. I mean, it's been a sad run.
I voted for Biden too. I voted for Biden 4 years ago.
Okay, but not the first Black man president. Okay, Mark. Okay, listen.
Why are you bringing up old stuff? Why
you brought it up?
You gotta let me. You gotta let me cook.
I would have brought it up.
You gotta let me cook.
I'm not. I have decided this year, especially, everybody I can be friends with on the same team with, the stakes are too high. I'm not going back in 2020. I'm not going back in 2016. I am saying kumbaya, damn it. But No, I agree with you. I don't think we let anybody go. I just think that, which is the thing I said on my show the other day, democracy is not a spectator sport. And so there are things that she's going to be doing, and I believe in her leadership. I am voting for her because I trust her decision making. So she's going to have to make some gut calls, and I am fine with that, including yesterday. But then we're going to be doing some work in our communities. You're right. I'm not going to tell the Palestinians how to vote because they are so much closer to that issue. And I am so much closer to other issues. So, I don't expect a man to be telling me whether Roe v. Wade is my one issue. I'm a woman with a daughter. So like, but I think we can work in our groups. I think that's one of the most beautiful things that's happened in this campaign, whether it's the white dudes, whether it's the guy that wear a purple sock on Thursday. Everybody had a group, everybody had a call, everybody got together with their own reasons about why this next step makes sense. And so I think that within the Palestinian community, they can talk to their own folks. And if you are closer in that community, you can say, yeah, well, I wish she hadn't done it that way. But listen, she took the time when it mattered to meet and have the conversations. And isn't that what we're hoping for? We're not just trying to make a spectacle. We're trying to make progress. We're trying to end this war, whatever the case may be, whatever the right arguments are. Yeah. But I don't think we let anybody go. No, I don't agree with whoever was saying that, because I do think at the end of the day, people go in that voting booth and if they show up into the booth, then there are a lot more people who are not voting for Trump. Now, people staying home out of disgust, what do we do to get people to actually go out and vote and have enthusiasm and energy? I think the campaign is doing a great job with that, but I think we can help.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think I share the sentiment you captured, right? I still think she's the best option. I wish she hadn't done it that way. I know you're not saying you wish she had done it that way. I'm saying that's the sentiment you articulated that some people might be saying in their communities. I'm saying I'm one of them people you talking about. I know what you're saying. You say, I know what you say, but I'm saying, look, I didn't like the way it went down. But I also am not going to allow my frustration with that moment to overshadow the big sort of political strategies that I think we have to kind of hold on to again, which for me hinges on stopping Trump. I don't think Kamala Harris has a good I don't think she's a good position on Israel Palestine at all. And that's based on me talking to her personally, privately, and her public statements. I don't think Biden has one. I don't think Obama had one. I don't think any U.S. president has one. So I just don't hang my hat on. I don't make a political choice based on it. It would be like me saying I'm not going to pick any candidate that takes corporate dollars or anybody that supports. It's like, okay, right? But now what? It just ain't. That's not. It has to be attached to a strategy that's winnable. I'm at a point where I just want to win. I'm not talking about win elections. I'm talking about get our issues solved.